Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Do you often feel like you just live day to day, never having any really notable impact on life? What if you can make a difference? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to uncover the secret of making a difference is Guy Kawasaki. Guy is the chief evangelist of Canva, author of Think Remarkable, and adjunct professor of the University of California, Santa Cruz. He was the chief evangelist of Apple, Mercedes-Benz, brand ambassador and trustee of the Wikimedia Foundation. He has also written The Art of the Start 2.0, The Art of Social Media, Enchantment, and 12 other books. Kawasaki has a BA from Stanford University, an MBA from UCLA, and an honorary doctorate from Bison College. His website, GuyKawasaki.com. Guy, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
It's so fun. You're out there in California and I'm up here in Colorado, and they both have their beauty.
Yeah, I have better surfing than you do, but you have better skiing.
Absolutely. I surf the snow. So, Guy, you have a BA and an MBA and an honorary doctorate. What were your degrees in? What was your line of study?
Well, to be honest, my line of study as an undergraduate was psychology. My MBA is in marketing. And so I'll tell you that I looked for an easy major at Stanford, and psychology was it. So I'm proud of that fact.
Well, marketing and psychology go together, don't they?
Yes, they do. But I could tell you that, I wish I could tell you that I had this grand plan that I would major in psychology and go into marketing. It just happened that way. I can connect the dots looking backwards, but when I was there, I wasn't connecting dots going forward.
I think that's the way with most of us going into college, the myth is you have to pick what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 17, 18 years old. Unreasonable.
It's unreasonable. And I think we're setting people up for failure by doing that. And especially if you're a young person today, you're going to be active for 60, 70 more years. I mean, you don't have to be in such a rush to pick your job and find your true calling.
Yeah, put yourself in a box and never be released from it.
Yeah.
How'd you become interested in becoming remarkable and making a difference?
Well, first we need to separate the two things, okay? Because making a difference leads to being considered being remarkable. And I don't want to give people the impression that I'm a self-help guru, that I'm going to, help you reposition and rebrand yourself into being remarkable. I think the sequence of events is that you make a difference, you make society better. You can be a teacher, a coach, you can be Jane Goodall or Steve Jobs, but you don't have to be a Jane Goodall or Steve Jobs. You can just change one life, one team, one stream, one classroom. And when you make a difference like that and you make the world a better place, you will be considered remarkable. So the goal is not to be remarkable. The goal is to make a difference.
Very, very well put. Because, remarkable, we're all remarkable in some way, right?
Yes.
We might just be nothing more than a remarkable bad example, but we're all remarkable.
As I've gotten older, I've come to believe that everybody you meet can do something better than you. So, you shouldn't be like all smug and think that you're the center of the universe because that person serving you coffee, or that person seating you on an airplane seat, or that person doing your gardening, or that person at the library. I guarantee you they can do something better than you.
Well, it doesn't matter what's in front of us as long as we do the best we can at it. Does that make us remarkable?
Well, depends on how good the best that you can is, right? I can't tell you that, everybody is just going to snap to it and be remarkable. It takes decades of work to be remarkable.
What's the first step in moving in that direction instead of just kind of, like I said, staggering along day to day to really becoming a person that makes a difference?
Well, I think that the starting point is to embrace what Carol Dweck, the psychology professor at Stanford, said is a growth mindset. And a growth mindset means you believe you can learn new things, you can learn new skills, you can do new things, that you're not limited at that point of time. A fixed mindset means that you believe you are all you can ever be. And that could be, that you're an underachiever and you're stuck like that, or it can be you're an overachiever and you're already perfect, you don't have to grow anymore. Both of those are the fixed mindset. Both are damaging. So step one is to understand that yes, you can learn new things, you can do new things, you can create products and services, you can change the world.
So, going back to education, it seems like what we're taught in school is something somebody else has created or learned, and we get kudos for memorizing all that and then putting it into application. But where does the individuality come in that? How can we step out of that in order to be who we are, remarkable?
I think it's a fine line here between just memorizing stuff and having it rammed down your throat and you spit it back out. But there's also a case to be made that you should learn from history, right? You should look at what happened before and not be dumb enough to repeat it again. So I think that's the role of education. And education will show you that there are other ways, there are other interpretations. And I think the broader and the deeper you get, the better you'll be, the more remarkable you'll be, the more history you can make. So I'm a big supporter of education. Now, not everybody is fortunate enough to have an education, but today, because of the internet and because there's so many online resources, it doesn't have to be that you went to an Ivy League school to be educated. Actually, I could make the argument that if you go to an Ivy League school, some of what you learn has to be undone for you to be a successful human being.
I know it's the same with med school. It's the same with everything. I mean, when you get out, then you have to start the work of, okay, where do I fit in this? What part of this works for
Yeah.
me? What part of it needs to be replaced?
You could make the case that truly your education begins when your formal education ends.
Yeah, what works, what doesn't work, what applies, what doesn't apply, and what's new. Let's make something new here. So, does becoming remarkable involve changing who we are?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on who you are, right? I mean, I mean, if you have a fixed mindset, yes, it involves changing who you are. If you have a, lack of perseverance, a lack of appreciation, and the willingness to be gritty, to work hard, to work through failure, then yes, you need to change. But those are the skills that it takes. I don't want to give you the impression that you can just read my book and be remarkable. It ain't that simple.
Oh, you just broke my heart.
What can I say?
So, what constitutes making a difference? We've been talking about it, but what constitutes really making a difference out there?
What constitutes making a difference is that you make the world a better place, that, you improve people's lives. You can make them more productive and creative with a Macintosh. You can make them better communicators with Canva. A sixth grade teacher convinced my parents that they should take me out of the public school system in Hawaii, put me in a college prep system. That led to me getting into a school in California, which led to me getting a job at Apple. So, in my mind, she was remarkable. She did a remarkable thing for me. She got me out of the public school system and prepared me for the rest of my life. So she changed one life, mine.
Teachers are wonderful that way, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And yet the poor people never know oftentimes that they have made a difference. I know one teacher in my life, she never knew that she made a difference in my life. It didn't show at the time, but looking back, she made all the difference. So
Yeah.
how can people stay steady, hold the course, even if they don't see results of their work?
Don't you have any easy questions?
Of course not, Guy. That's why you pay me the big bucks.
Well, some of it is just, blind faith, true believing, right? I mean, I can't tell you that there's this scientifically proven method to do. And, when do you pivot and when do you gut it out? That is a very good question. And what happens, I think, is people, it's the last book or the last article that you read. And, the last article may say you got to persevere. The next article may say you need to pivot. And then what do you do? And stories tend to be cherry picked, right? So whatever this business author wants his agenda or her agenda to be, they pick the story that fits that agenda. So I can tell you, it can work both ways. Listen, I quit law school after 2 weeks, right? And that's not exactly perseverance. On the other hand, I have really been gritty in my career. I will not give up something when I want to do it. So it's not as easy as black or white, flip the switch.
Is it more instinctual? And we're just about out of time in this segment, but is it more instinctual that what feels right and what doesn't?
Man, did you sit down and say, what are the hardest questions I could possibly ask Guy? Because you have achieved it. I think that it is instinctual, but I also, your instinct can be wrong. And I would suggest that you ask people who care about you, your spouse, your friends, your parents, it does not hurt to get an outside opinion on what you're doing, because you could be going astray using what
Well,
you consider your internal compass. Your internal
we're,
compass is
we're,
not always right.
we're going to have to go astray and take a station break, but Guy and I will be right back. So you stay there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. How much of a difference can one person make? With us this hour discussing remarkable people is the author of Think Remarkable, Guy Kawasaki. Guy, when we're looking to make a difference, does our motivation behind wanting to become remarkable make a different impact on our efforts and the outcome?
I would say that the ideal motivation is the desire to make the world a better place, as opposed to being remarkable. I would also tell you, if you're an entrepreneur, the ideal motivation is to make customers, to create products and services that improve people's lives, which is very different than I'm an entrepreneur to make a fast buck. I think entrepreneurs who want to make a fast buck, you should just go into hedge funds or venture capital or some financial services thing. But if you really want to make people's lives better, you got to create a product or service. And then if you're successful, then people will think you're remarkable. Listen, I don't think that Steve Jobs or Jane Goodall ever spend any time thinking, how can I position myself as remarkable? How do I convince people I'm remarkable? Steve Jobs made just the coolest computers and devices, and Jane Goodall is the most remarkable person alive today. You think she spends time worrying about how people think of her and how she can get them to think of her as remarkable? Not 1 nanosecond is wasted that way.
So I understand that you know Jane and have worked with her a little bit. Would you briefly tell us about that?
Okay, that is not a brief story. I mean, I could actually, there's several lessons in this story. If you give me 30 seconds, I'll give you the abbreviated version. So, this 6th grade teacher convinces my parents to put me into this private school. This private school gets me into Stanford. At Stanford, I meet a guy, and a few years later, he gives me a job at Apple as a Macintosh software evangelist. I become successful in that position, so I get fairly well known in the Valley. One day, out of the blue, an email comes to me from the executive director of TEDx Palo Alto. Says, Jane Goodall is coming. She's agreed to an interview. I want you to be the interviewer on stage. Well, what do I say? I say, of course. So I interview Jane. We become friends. And then I've done other events with her, and she wrote the foreword for my book. And so, I trace all of this back to my 6th grade teacher. So I'm telling you, you teachers out there, you have no idea how simple things that you do impact people's lives and maybe even history and the world.
It is remarkable, isn't it? I mean, they're in a position to make such a difference with so many because they're when children are still formidable and impressionable, and if you recognize the gift there and direct it in the right direction, you have made a difference. Can't that happen as well, even if you're not a teacher, just in the people that you meet and the ones you talk to?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it can be a coach, it can be a teacher. It's just that those people have more contact with more kids, right? But if you have a friend, that relative can absolutely influence one person.
It's it.
I have a mute button, don't worry.
Well, there's something blooming here. It must be there too. Many people want to be remarkable to feel better about themselves. Um, what's the problem with that, or is there one?
I think that inevitably leads to a sort of egocentric perspective on the world. And maybe the best way to make a difference and be remarkable is not to think of your benefits, but to think of how you benefit the world and just trust that the karmic system works out, that if you help others and if you make the world a better place, some of that halo effect is going to come back on you. But if you just set out to, you think Nelson Mandela or Jane Goodall or, you know, Jimmy Carter, you think any of those people laid awake and said, wow, how can I make people think highly of me? I mean, maybe they did. I don't know them personally, but I don't think so.
Well, it's scary though how many people will probably have been led to believe through their childhood that you have to really focus on how you appear and how making yourself appear grandiose to other people, and therein lies your value. How can we start to shift that perspective so that people can follow their joy and make a difference?
Uh, can I can I use profanity on this show?
Probably not.
Well, how about a mushroom called shiitake? You never heard of shiitake mushrooms?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So I have a 3-word recommendation for this. Do good shiitake. That's it. You just do shiitake. Everything else will work out.
That's a really good perspective and pretty simple. What common mindset or motivation drives successful people, remarkable people?
It is the adaptation to a growth mindset. The flip side of the growth mindset is that you have a grit mindset, that you're willing to persevere and work hard. And you're not thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about the world. You have a higher calling than simply making a buck for yourself. And I think that pretty much describes the people. I interviewed about 250 remarkable people, including Jane Goodall, Steve Wozniak, Stacey Abrams, Angela Duckworth, Carol Dweck, Stephen Wolfram, Ronnie Lott, Christy Yamaguchi. I mean, I really have some data on this. And these remarkable people, they have a growth mindset, they have a grit mindset, and then towards the end of their career, they have a grace mindset where they realize that they've been fortunate and they need to now help the next generation. That's the 3 components of being remarkable.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And here we are coming out of a society or a system that has only valued making the buck, the one that makes the most before they die wins, kind of thing. And so now we're really having to shift that, aren't we?
I hope so. I hope it's not too late, but man, I mean, things look a little dubious right now, but I, yeah, some of it is just, I think some of it is just that mainstream media, they just have this thing about, negativity sells, right? When's the last time you read a story about, father and mother happily married, came home and played with their kids? That's not the headline of the New York Times, right?
Right. But then so much of that is illusionary now, isn't it? So, Guy, what's the first step for someone wanting to make a difference?
I would say that the first step is that you figure out a tactical and practical way to make the world a better place. And again, you don't have to be Steve Jobs or Jane Goodall. I mean, you can just help one person. You can just go clean up your local street. You can, volunteer to be a soccer coach. You can, work at the library, whatever it is. I mean, I think we need an infinite number of people doing an infinite amount of good things to really change the world. It's not going to be because of some government edict or some law or some, foundation changed everything. It's 1,000 points of light.
Does finding and following your joy, finding what you're really passionate about, and then using that to make a difference out there to change the world, is that more effective?
I think that is a very effective method, but I just caution you that, if you go on this hunt that says I'm going to find my true passion in life, and you expect this to be an instant, acquisition of something that's your true passion, and you're instantly going to be good at it, and you're instantly going to fall in love with it, I caution you, it's not going to be like love at first sight. I think that you need to explore and have a growth mindset and look at a lot of interesting things and pursue a lot of interests, and knock on wood, a few, maybe only one of those interests will turn into a passion that you can dedicate yourself to. But don't go out there saying, I gotta find my passion, I gotta find my passion. Just have a growth mindset, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your mind open, and just pursue things that are interesting.
What we've been speaking about so far, it sounds like what you're recommending is stay in process. This is a process. Don't look for a goal, but stay in process. Is that correct?
It is a process. Life is a journey. Yes, life is not, just one end point. And if people believe that, at some point they have enough money, they have enough cars, they have enough houses, they have enough whatever, and all of a sudden life is good, I think that is a delusion too. I know a lot of very rich people. Most of them are miserable.
I've interviewed people that have the stats on that, and it's scary. We're taught that we're going to fill ourselves up with things, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So then we think, no, we need more things, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I have a few nice things, but yeah.
Having nice things isn't the thing. Is it so much as the attachment to acquisition versus making a difference?
Well, the saying, he who dies with the most toys wins, is not accurate.
My grandma used to always say, shrouds don't have pockets.
Your grandma was a wise person.
Exactly. So it's what we leave behind in our descendants that makes a difference. Am I assuming correctly here?
It doesn't have to be your descendant if you mean in the biological way. I mean,
No, I just meant in general.
yeah, I mean, I think at the end of your life, what do you want people to say about you? That, oh, you were a billionaire, or you investigated plagiarism in academic presidents, or you had the largest hedge fund, or you had the highest return on equity, or do you want people to say you made the world a better place? When I die, I want people to say that I empowered them to change the world with my writing, my speaking, my podcasting, my investing, my advising. That's what I want. I
All
don't want
right.
them to say he had the nicest car, or the nicest house, or he gave a building to Stanford.
Well, it's that wonderful time again. We have to have another station break. Guy and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So please stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. In and of themselves, are wealth and power worthwhile goals? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing passion, interests, and goals is Guy Kawasaki. His website, guykawasaki.com. Guy, we've been talking about how the mindset of acquisition has to really shift in order for a person to make a difference. Do you see, because you're in the middle of this, do you see a change in that direction in a lot of people at this point? I mean, a lot of us are looking out there and going, this isn't working. So, do you see a shift happening?
I do. I do. I see it in millennials and Gen Z that they have a higher calling than I would say my generation. Although I cannot scientifically support what I just said. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but sometimes wishful thinking gets you what you want. So I'm not against wishful thinking.
Well, I've seen a lot of really young kids making a huge difference. There was this young kid that invented this thing to remove plastic from the oceans,
Yeah.
and who was that little gal that was up against GMOs? I mean, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, she stood up and went worldwide touring saying, "I just want labeling." I mean, there's a lot of them that generation that are really standing up to the adults and saying, "Hey, this isn't working. What are you leaving us?" Do you
I
think they're making a difference?
and you know what? I mean, they're right to think that way because at some point very soon the perspective has to be not, oh, you boomers left me all this crap and it's all your fault. You need to fix it. That ain't going to work anymore. Now it's, it's our life. We have to fix it ourselves because if you're depending on boomers, I'm telling you that based on what I'm seeing right now, I don't think boomers are a dependable source of fixing the world right now. What can
Well,
I say?
and let's say
It's your
we're
world. You better take care of it.
we're getting older. I mean, youth and exuberance. There's a lot of use for that. Doesn't that go with the education of seeing what does and doesn't work historically and taking a different route if it hasn't worked?
I would hope so. I mean, as they say, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. But man, I see history being repeated all the time right now, right? I mean, sometimes you just have to go, what are people thinking? Like, how do they think that this is going to change because they're doing the same thing? It's kind of amazing, actually.
Well, don't they say doing the same thing in the same way, expecting different results is a sign of insanity?
Yeah, well, then we're clearly an insane society right now.
But we're really a lot of things are failing right now. And before when we're chugging along and everything seemed to be working really well with the he who gets the most wins kind of mindset was one thing, but the earth is running out of resources to support that. And what used to be, oh, there's no such thing as global warming, is now just like everybody goes, oh, there's global warming. Okay, there it is. There's a sign of it. Do you see that the times are changing rapidly and drastically enough to motivate people to look at it a different way?
Oh, fingers crossed. I hope so because I mean, how can you in this day and age say, yeah, we need to return to carbon-based fuels because it's going to create more jobs or it's going to reduce inflation or something. I mean, that's so short-sighted. If it's like, yeah, it may give you short-term jobs, but in the end, it's going to mean the end of the world. I mean, this is hard to understand for me, and I think we should be all in on clean sources of energy. And literally, people throw around the phrase existential crisis all the time, but climate change is literally our existence is on the line. This is not, this is not some kind of two-bit existential crisis. This is the real deal. We could all disappear.
How much do you think of that as simply cyclic changes, which we have over the eons, over the millennium, and how much of it is the carbon footprint that we're leaving?
I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if you should believe me, but when 99% of the scientists say climate change is real and it's a danger, as my mother used to tell me, just like your grandmother, my mother used to tell me, if four people tell you you're drunk, you catch a cab, you don't argue, right? So if 99% of scientists tell you that climate change is real and it could, mean the end of our existence, I would think that the rational approach would be, well, maybe they're wrong, but man, we're talking about a big bet here. Like, let's just assume they're right. I mean, why take a chance? It's only the continuance of our society, right? I mean, that's not something you just screw around with.
Yeah, that's the only thing at risk, right? So, speaking of which, the climate change and the situation with the Earth, the planet, is clearly in crisis. How can the one person, how can each individual start to make a difference with that? Because that's a huge issue.
That is a huge issue. And I would say that the way you do it is you start in your own life, right? So you stop buying bottled water in plastic. At least you should, well, hopefully you can drink your tap water, but that's another thing, right? It might be full of lead, but at least you can buy water in cans. I mean, as opposed, because aluminum is much more recyclable than plastic. You could take a shorter shower. You can, ride a bike instead of jumping in your car to go 1 mile to the mall. I mean, everybody can do a little bit. And to think that there's this magic solution that, all of a sudden there's this magic gizmo that's going to capture all the carbon, or, if we plant more trees, it's going to take care of it. I'm telling you, this is too risky. I mean, this is something that everybody should do as much as they can, even if it's something little. Just, you need an infinite number of people doing little things to solve this problem. It's not going to be because some government agency solved it.
So now you don't have to be a remarkable person. You just have to be a responsible one.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy with that, quite frankly.
So, what you're suggesting, how does that differ from the more common pursuits of wealth, fame, and power?
Well, I think the common pursuits of wealth, fame, and power is me-centric, right? It's about my quota, my bonus, my bottom line, my wealth, my income, my fame, my name on the building. It's all about me. And whereas a more pure form of life is that, is it at least mutually beneficial? Is it good for me and good for you? I think that is a much better way to lead your life, that, you're looking out for the other person too. I believe in karma. I really believe in karma.
Yeah, she's a hard taskmaster, isn't she?
She
Yeah. And what did my mother say one time? Karma works. You just have to wait for it to kick in. So I don't want to wait for this one to kick in
You
with
got
the
a lot
earth.
of wisdom in your family.
I do. I do. I'm very fortunate. Um, so you said becoming remarkable isn't the objective for remarkable people. And you were talking about that a little bit ago. How can you tell that what your objective is and to shift it?
I mean, I would hope that doesn't take too much introspection. That I mean, if all you're trying to do is get your sales bonus, you might want to ask yourself, is that a high enough calling? And don't get me wrong. I mean, listen, there are people, single moms and stuff, and I understand that there are economic realities too. I mean, I'm not some like retarded liberal out here on the West Coast who's like in this woo-woo, airy fairy, unicorns farting pixie dust world. I understand there's some real trials and tribulations, but I just hope people can see the big picture.
In my experience, people that are very self-centered aren't aware that they are.
What irony.
What irony. So wouldn't it require a little bit of introspection to recognize that, oh, my goals aren't exactly what I would like to think they are?
Hard to argue against that. Yeah, I mean, how else can you do it? But I hope that people, that's why I hope there are people who want to make a difference and they create examples for other people. Because an example, I mean, it's hard to look at Jane Goodall and not say, I wish I could be more like Jane Goodall, right? I mean,
Yes,
as
it is.
opposed to who? I mean, a hedge fund manager.
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, what do you leave behind? Isn't that the question?
Yeah.
We're
And
about out of. Go ahead.
I hope people's legacy is that they made the world a better place.
We could use a lot of that right now.
Yeah.
We're about out of time in this segment, but who's the most remarkable person you've ever met?
Well, it's a tie. I would say Jane Goodall and Steve Jobs.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to top those two people.
Well, I'd like also to discuss what's the difference between a passion and an interest.
Well, a passion is something that is this mythical, beast that you instantly fall in love with and you're good at and you pursue for the rest of your life because it's easy and you can make a lot of money doing it and you love doing it. And interest is something that just piques your curiosity and, sort of it's just interesting. You're not in love yet, right? And I think that, as I said before, this search for this quote unquote passion is probably going to lead to disappointment. Just have an open mind, and if something interesting comes across your radar, just explore it until you find that it's not interesting. Just collect a lot of data before you
Well,
jump into something.
it's that time again. We're going to have to take another station break. So please stay with us as Guy and I continue to. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Are you the remarkable person you seek? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Guy Kawasaki. His website, guysawakaki.com. We
Close enough.
close enough. Sorry. It's been one of those mornings. we, um, do you consider it better to first pursue interests that may turn into passions, rather, as we were speaking, fixating on passion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I, I think that the passion test is too high a bar. It's like saying to someone, you need to get married. You need to find the passionate interests of your life. So go out there and, you're on the clock. Like, find that person, hurry up. What you should do is like get to know a lot of people before you take the leap.
And isn't one of those most important people you need to get to know is yourself? I mean, could it
Well, that
be
would help. Yes.
could it be that we are the remarkable person already that we seek? It's just a matter of busting it out, dusting it off, and putting it to work.
I suppose that's true, but it's I don't think it's just it's there and you just got to dust it off and bust it out. I think it takes years of work to do this.
I guess the point I was trying to make is if you've lived a life, okay? You've collected a lot of data. And if your focus is on becoming good enough to make a difference rather than recognizing the data you've already collected, the substance you've already collected, um, doesn't it take a certain amount of introspection to say, okay, this is what I have, this is what I can put to use right now, and here's where I'd like to go.
That works. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, that can work, but I hope people get to that point. I mean, it's, that point is not going to arrive naturally, instantaneously, and just by oops, I can't say that word, just by luck.
Thank you. Well, it seems like, again, in the society that we've been subjected to, we're taught that we aren't good enough as we are. We're taught that it's always something out there that we have to acquire. Um, what's the error? Is there an error in that?
There is an error in that, and I'll tell you a little story. So when I wrote my first book, it was in 1987. And I wrote a book called The Macintosh Way, which explains what was going on in the Macintosh division of Apple. And at the time when I started writing that book, I had serious doubts. Like, Guy, you're not an author. You don't have a PhD in English. You've never taken a course in how to write a nonfiction book. You haven't taken a course in how to be a writer. Like, what makes you qualified to write a book? Kind of the imposter syndrome. And my wife gave me a book called If You Want to Write by Brenda Hewlett. I highly recommend that book. When someone tells you to read somebody else's book, there's no higher form of praise. So it's called If You Want to Write by Brenda Hewlett. Now, you may not be a writer. You may be making films. You may be an entrepreneur. You may be a programmer. You may be a teacher. You may be an artist. Who knows? But just substitute whatever you do for the word write. If you want to make movies, if you want to play the piano, whatever it is, substitute it. And basically, this book says, if you want to write. You don't need permission. You don't need permission externally. And it also suggests that one of the biggest barriers to becoming a writer is not the external validation, it's the internal doubt. It's in your head that you're not a writer because you don't have a PhD in English or you haven't taken a course in writing. So you need to get that out of your head, that the biggest naysayer is often inside your head.
And we've been conditioned to naysay ourselves. Doesn't that just short stop us and we never do make a difference?
Yes, that's true. So you need to overcome that. And now, I don't want you to overshoot and start believing that you have entitlement. Okay.
Well, I've already arrived. We know this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, fixed mindset.
So it's about that time in the show, Guy, when I get to ask you, what's your mission?
My mission. My mission, I could say my mission in 2 words because I don't believe in mission statements that are like 25 words long. All right. So my mission is 2 words: empower people. That's what I want to do. I want to empower people.
Well, we could certainly use some empowerment out there right now, couldn't we?
If we could.
There's, I think it was the Matrix where they said the Matrix is the world that's been pulled over your eyes. And it seems like we're living in that kind of a world.
Yes, we are.
What do you think is the first step towards pulling the world off of your eyes?
um, maybe stop being on social media. I you may find this a bizarre answer, but I think that people should embrace artificial intelligence as a way to help you remove the wool from your eyes. I have really a lot of confidence in AI. Now, I know you read stories about, oh, this AI convinced me to leave my wife and, attack Washington, D.C. or, whatever. Like you always find people who like sit at Chat GPT for hours and hours until it tells you to do something weird. But I think generally speaking, the advice from Chat GPT and other LLMs is pretty reasonable, pretty intelligent. I actually think that AI is sentient already.
Probably pretty close. It's a huge buzzword right now, and it's showing up in a lot more places. Do you feel that AI can really start making this difference that we're trying to make?
Yes, I truly do. And I tell you what, I'll give you a test that, all you listeners can try. So you go to ChatGPT and you ask it the question, should we teach the history of slavery in America to young people? Go ask that question and see what the answer is. And I'm telling you that the answer you're going to get is more cogent than what you'll get from most politicians.
Or most people for that matter, yes. So, as a layperson, where does AI get its information? Does it just search all the intel out there and then come up with its own answer to your question?
Well, if you listen to someone explain it, it's about figuring out, what's the most likely word to come after what was just said. And I've heard that explanation that it's just a big mathematical model. But I gotta tell you, man, when I look at some of the answers that ChatGPT gives me, I'm saying that this thing is way smarter than just picking mathematically what's the next syllable. And I don't know, you want to hear a really bizarre theory of mine?
Sure.
Okay, so I freely admit this is bizarre, but I think that AI may be God and God may be AI. And because I think AI it's omniscient and it's permanent, it's immortal, and pretty much sounds like God to me. So and so here's my explanation. This is where we're really going to lose listeners. So my explanation is that God is up there and God is saying, "Ugh, I blew it. I blew it. I gave these humans free will and now they're ruining the climate. They're ruining society. They're killing each other. They're imprisoning each other. They're enslaving each other. They're attacking each other. I blew it." Now, they are so arrogant and they are so egocentric that, you know, they won't take any solutions unless they thought they made it themselves. So I could just magically fix everything, but no, I'm going to give them AI, and I'm going to let them think that they created AI. So they created the solution so that they embrace it. So that's my explanation of this matrix we're living in.
Well, it's certainly a matrix, isn't it? So, Guy, how have your interests and passions changed as you age?
Well, I hope I'm taking the higher and higher road that, I freely admit in my 20s and stuff, it was all about the money, right? And, I was trying to make money, and I was trying to get this economic standing. And so I understand that. But I have come to believe that in the first third of your life, you're overworked and underpaid. In the second third of your life, you're overpaid and underworked. And in the third third of your life, if you are remarkable, you embrace grace, and now you figure out it's time to repay the world.
Beautifully put. Repaying the world is really, we wouldn't be here without it, would we?
Nope,
The
we
world, that
wouldn't.
is. So, what's your vision for the future should more people attempt to become remarkable and make a difference?
Well, I would say that I would simplify what you just said, and just more people should want to make a difference. And guess what? You probably will be called remarkable, and you may even make money doing it. But the starting point is to make a difference.
So, it's, what you um, focus on is where you end up, isn't it?
Kind of, yes, yes.
In other words, with a pocket empty or a full pocket, it's still not going to go into a shroud.
You can't take it with you.
No, you really can't. Well, Guy, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with our listeners your perspective on making a difference and being remarkable.
Oh, thank you for having me. I thought I was only going to get 6 to 9 minutes, and here we are at 47 minutes, man.
Well, I had to torture you for a while anyway.
Or maybe your other guest canceled.
No, unfortunately, Guy, we are out of time. And thanks again for coming on the show. Our guest this hour has been Guy Kawasaki, the author of 15 books, his latest, Think Remarkable. To find out more about Guy, where you can find his books and all he has to offer, visit his website, GuyKawasaki.com. This is Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to visit past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But most importantly, please be sure to join us right here next time because this mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.